Hello, everybody. Craig Wessels here from a Yank on the Footy, and I wanted to take a look back at a little bit of round eight. I have to admit that I did not see as much of it as I would have liked. Um, and this week that was okay because I was doing something absolutely awesome and had a wonderful time doing it. So it was, I will get caught up on a couple of games. I did watch three of them this weekend. Um, but I did spend the weekend in San Diego, California, visiting my son while he was out there finishing up a training that he was undergoing as an officer in the Navy, and very difficult process that he went through, and he and a couple dozen other officers had gone through and completed in four different fields. If you follow me on my socials, especially on Facebook, you can certainly see that. Find my name on there, Craig Wessels. I did put a post up there about that, but very proud of his efforts. I did get to watch the Essendon game. I got to watch also, and I'm looking at my list here for my tips because I just got home late last night. I did watch parts of Adelaide and Carlton, not a whole lot of it, and of course I did watch the Cats and Magpies as well. I did want to talk about that. I did end up going 6-3 this week. I missed out on North Melbourne, missed out on Fremantle, and I missed out on Gold Coast as well. And I'm beginning to realize that maybe I might have gotten two of my top eight tips wrong. And again, it's still early. It's only round eight. We're about a third of the way through the season. These two clubs could both come blazing back. Okay, maybe only one of them. But remember, I tipped Fremantle to play in the grand final this year. And they are such a temptress. They've got such a good side, and they tempt you to want to put them in there because you think this club is going to finally put it all together. They're going to finally do what they're capable of, and then all they do is fill their shoe, seemingly. They'll play a great game once in a while, and then they'll play a couple terrible games back to back, and it's a tough club to watch. It is because they're so talented. It's a very talented side, and yeah, and the other one was again North Melbourne. And North Melbourne, I'm now at the point where I've come to the realization they are not going to be climbing out of the basement this year. I still think they'll likely finish ahead of the Eagles. I think they'll finish ahead of maybe Richmond, although Richmond is playing decent football. They're playing hard. They got thumped pretty good this week. But yeah, I did want to talk a little bit about this trip. I had a couple things that went on that were interesting. I got to experience my first opportunity in taking like Lyft or Uber, that sort of thing. And I used the Lyft app a couple of times. I live in a relatively small town. I don't travel a whole heck of a lot yet. Um, Outside of town to where I would not have my vehicle with me, so I've not had the need to utilize this program. And the first couple times I used it, I found it to be extraordinarily easy. Very friendly people that I worked with, and um, I I went to use it to call my ride to the airport to come home yesterday, and well, how do I put it this way? I'm not sure if it was the app or the Wi-Fi at the hotel I was staying at, but the Wi-Fi, I could not get the Wi-Fi to connect to the app. So here I am my son was packing because he was flying home at a later time. He was not awake. Um, I was not, asking him to come get me to the airport because I had a very early flight. Um, so I did not stay up to watch the Cats game live. Okay, we'll get to the Cats game in a moment. Um, so I couldn't get the app to work. But then I ultimately ended up using the lady at the front desk at the hotel did call a taxi service with me or for me, and I was able to travel that way and get to the airport. And I got there plenty early. I uh, I got there and was actually at my gate for my flight, sitting down more than 3 hours before my flight. Okay. So there was a whole flight that was going to be going out of that gate before mine that there wasn't a soul there for yet. And I'm there very early, got through the TSA. And that's an experience in and of itself. And I'm not sure what travel security is like in Australia. I'm hoping to find out next year. But here, they send you through this X-ray machine where they give you some sort of a visual rectal exam or whatever. I mean, they're all up in your business on this thing. It's if you've been in the United States and you've traveled here, you know what I'm talking about. Well, I got pulled out for an enhanced screening because something showed up on it when I was flying out of Cleveland. And it's like nothing there. Um, and I came to the realization afterwards I had hernia surgery last year. So there's, again, put this in the too much information category, but there's some fiberglass or steel mesh. I don't know what the mesh is made out of, nylon, whatever they have in there, that is now basically holding my ample abs in place, I guess, to keep all the muscles where they're supposed to be. And it didn't even dawn on me that would possibly show up, but it did. And let's just say that I know the TSA agent is going to be kind enough to send a card for our anniversary because he got to know me very well. Same within San Diego on the way out, but then I did mention to him, yeah, I do have this hernia mesh right where it's showing up there on that side of my body, if you will. So, um, and they were like, "Well, do you want to go into a private space to do this?" I was like, "You know what? No, let's do it right here in front of God and country. I don't give a shit. It's okay. I know I don't have anything that I need to be worried about. Now I'm going to let you find that out." So I got to the gate, sat down. I popped on my computer. I did got the Wi-Fi running at the airport to sit down and watch the Cats and Pies game. Now I will let you know I didn't read up on it, but I did. Unfortunately, I popped open a social media account and did see the final score. So I was already pretty happy seeing what the score was going to be, knowing that that's where they were going to end up. But I didn't know how they were going to get there. And oh my goodness, was that one hell of a game. What a tremendous, tremendous game by two phenomenal clubs. And again, I'm going to go on the record right now. I did not tip Collingwood to play finals this year. I thought they were going to, and again, ironic for a Cat supporter, I thought that the Magpies were going to hit that too old, too slow category this year. Well, that hasn't happened yet. And they are playing phenomenally well. I still don't know if they're going to be able to hold up, scoring as much as they would like to. I just think they could use a little bit more scoring if you're going to rely on Tim Membry, if you're going to rely on Jamie Elliott staying healthy all year long. Brody Mychek, who I one of my favorite players in the comp, always seems to get dinged up because he's such a hard-nosed player. Just a great effort on their part. Okay, great effort on their part. I do have to admit, though, I did get a chuckle. I did find it rather hilarious that, after there was a rather aggressive tackle from Braden Maynard, that Paddy Dangerfield kind of popped up most of the way and then kind of dropped a knee on him. And Braden Maynard gets up and just starts gesticulating to the umpires like, "Look what he did to me. Look what he did." And I'm thinking, of all the people in the competition to go pissing and moaning about somebody doing something a little dastardly, Braden Maynard, just keep that complaint in your pocket, okay? Just keep that one in your pocket, sir. Go back and watch the video. You got one hell of a reputation about pulling that same kind of shit all on your own, okay? So I don't know if everybody else picked up on that, but I found that rather humorous, okay? So, Patty, good on you there. Couldn't happen to a nicer enforcer, if you will, to use a hockey analogy. But it was a tremendous game. I know there was a lot of controversy. There was a 21-14 free kick difference in the game. I know a lot of kicks that just did not hit the mark for the Magpies. I mean, had the Magpies kicked a little bit straighter, they're going to win this game by a couple of goals. Let's be honest about that, okay? They were in many cases a better team. They ultimately did not end up having as many inside 50s as the Cats, which, of course is going to be, it's going to be, beneficial to have that occurring for you. I did think that Mitch Duncan had a very serviceable game, first game back this year. Is he going to get another one? I don't know, but 20 disposals. Um, you know, only had the one clearance, but he just, he did what they needed him to do. And I'll be honest, I did go with my heart tipping the Cats this week, but I was not terribly optimistic because no Tom Stewart. Okay. No Jack Henry. Um, and I just, and I'll be honest, I still don't think Tom Stewart is as healthy as we would like him to be, which is again why he missed this week. And I think it's not a bad idea that he did miss this week, just to try to get him on the mend, and get himself going in the right direction. A great effort by Bailey Smith. I I gotta say though, as much as I love him playing for the Cats, and I do, I don't think that the Bulldogs did bad by him. I don't think they mistreated him. They stood by him when he had some hiccups during his early career with them. And I know it was one of those I'm excited in the moment comments where he talked about, the crowd there, and he made the comment about not seeing, that kind of a crowd at Ballarat. And I just, yes, he's entitled to his opinion, and he's certainly in the spirit of the game, in the excitement at that time of the game. You're gonna say things like that. I get that, but it's just not a really good look, I don't think. And I don't think that the Bulldogs did anything necessarily in his playing time there to warrant. I don't. Was it disrespect? I thought it was kind of an underhanded thing to do. I think it's kind of maybe a comment that maybe in the change rooms after the game, all the press is done, and he's sitting down there having a Gatorade or whatever he's drinking, and he's talking to one of his teammates, and he's talking to maybe Jeremy Cameron, who played much of his first decade of his career in front of very small crowds with GWS at home, and maybe he could have said something offhand and said, "Mate, we don't get a lot of crowds like that up at Ballarat, or up at GWS at NG Stadium, which is what it is now, at the world famous Mason Cox cow paddock." And we would have never heard about it. And the Bulldogs, and I kind of appreciate Marcus Bontempelli sledging him a little bit back, about telling me, well, that just means we have fewer people for you to flip off, and I guess I appreciate the give and take between the two sides, but I just really wish Bailey Smith had kept that comment for himself and maybe shared it amongst his club mates rather than allowing that one to be out in public. I think if he had the opportunity to do that again, he may say something different. But it was a great matchup, and like I said, there was controversy. The tackle on Sean Manna late in the game, the goal kick, was it touched? Was it not touched? I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't know if it was touched or not touched, but I'm pretty sure that the camera system at Cardinia Park works much better than the one at the MCG. So, hey, Collingwood, if you ever want to actually take the trip down south and play a game away from the MCG, Scott Pendlebury might want to see it before he retires. Then, and you know what? I'm looking for this. I don't know what Scott Pendlebury's plans are when he retires. Okay. I just this popped into my head just now. And I remember earlier this year, maybe it was last year, when Jack Riewoldt was first starting to do some work with Fox Footy. And again, I've only been following the game now for a decade, and it's my 10th year. And he was commenting about, what the Wings are like at GmbHA Stadium and when he played there. And I was trying to rack my brain thinking, when the hell was Richard ever there? And I had to go look on the AFL tables to go find when Jack Riewoldt actually had played, and he did actually play a couple games at Cardinia Park throughout his career. So I'm looking forward to Scott Pendlebury, if he decides to get into announcing, going down there and talking about the idiosyncrasies of the ground at Cardinia Park, and maybe people holding up signs in the background would go, "How the hell would you know?" Something along those lines. But and again, I'm kind of sledging on the Magpies here a little bit, and I'm kind of flying in the face of what I just sort of condemned Bailey Smith for having done there. But it was a hard fought game against two clubs who I believe they see each other again before the season is up, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm trying to think if they do play each other twice this year. I think that they do. No, that was it. That was it. Okay. Because the Cats have the Giants coming up here. They've actually got 3 of their next 5 at home. But it was a tremendous game. And this was a game that I think that if you're watching, and I saw the guys from Americans Watching the Footy commenting about the Fremantle game earlier in the round, hoping that was not the first game, the Fremantle St. Kilda game, the first game that somebody that was new to the game would watch because they'd never want to watch again. And I tipped my cap to St. Kilda. And, Daz over at Daz Talks Footy had a great point. He says, St. Kilda, they scored 90 plus points and they played the hell out of their defense and held their opponent to 33 points. What's there to complain about? They got to play Ross Lyon football while still scoring 90 plus points. You choked off the other club and you scored a lot of points. So, I mean, St. Kilda, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with that. But while I was watching the game at the airport, and again, it was interesting watching it. I had a gentleman sit down next to me as the waiting area was the gate was beginning to fill up, and he had a San Diego Padres hat on. They're a team in Major League Baseball, and I kind of looked over. I said, feel free to look over my shoulder if you'd like to. I took my AirPods out and I turned the volume up a little bit, not too terribly loud, so I didn't want to distract anybody else. And he started getting really interested in it. And we as I'm watching the game, we had about a 30-minute conversation about footy, about what it was. I did pause the Cats game for a few minutes and show him. There's a little YouTube video from a number of years ago called "What is AFL," and it kind of does a little introduction. It's something that I'll show my students quite often because like as the footy season is beginning, because they'll see the games on in the morning as they come into my classroom before school, and I explained it to him, and I told him, I said, I was a massive baseball fan for well over a half century. It was far and away my sports passion. I watched baseball constantly. I've not watched a game now in going on 6.5, 7 years now. And we discussed why I stopped watching baseball. The fact that there is no salary cap in the game, where you have, and I've done an episode, or I did a blog post on this if you want to check out my website, and I'll link this blog post in the show notes for this episode here. I talked about how the disparity in payrolls for I think there's 30 teams now in Major League. I think there's 30. Yeah, there are in Major League Baseball are so widespread, that you have the top team spending wise spends more money than like the bottom 4 or 5 teams combined. So there's not that parity like the AFL has with the hard cap. There's not that parity like the NFL has with their hard salary cap. The NBA has a salary cap, but it's a little bit more flexible. It allows you to, in many cases, hang on to your better players to allow them to be signed to max contracts. I don't follow the NBA, but I know that there are codicils in their dealings that allow them to try to keep players that otherwise they might not be able to afford. But Major League Baseball, you've got a lot of teams, and I spoke to him about, and again, we just chatted for like a half an hour. And he seemed to be rather enamored about the game. I told him where you could find the games on television here. And he was on the flight before mine. So he's getting ready to get up and get in line to board the plane. And we shook hands and we chatted. I didn't even get his name. And he mentioned to me as he was heading out that he actually works in the front office for the San Diego Padres. So he works for the team. And I was like, here I am, complaining about, if you will, lamenting my frustration with the game that he's part of, a game that I loved. Okay. If baseball had I'm just going to be honest here. If baseball had a salary cap, if baseball had punished the Houston Astros players and banished them from the game and removed them from the game when they cheated during a course of like 2 years, And I strongly encourage you. It may have gone back behind their paywall, but there's a podcast called American Scandal that did a whole series about the Padres and their cheating scandal. And it's if you're a baseball fan or a sports fan, it just pisses you off that they did this and that the reward was them winning the World Series. And they got punished a little bit. They got suspended for a few games here and there. They got fined. The general manager, the list manager, if you want to call it, the team manager, the senior coach, if you will, was suspended for a year. But these guys have gone on to sign contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars afterwards. And they should have been kicked out of the game for bringing shame and bringing dishonor to a wonderful game. So if there was a salary cap where all teams could compete on a level playing field, if there was the Astros players removed from the game, I might not be here. I may not be talking about footy. I may never have discovered Australian football. So in a way, I guess I'm thankful that that did happen, because I've found this game that I love that you share with me, and I'm so appreciative of that. But I can't help but think, you sons of bitches screwed up and have destroyed the game that I love. And I had to go find something else because of what you did. This isn't on me. It's on you. Now, this is not directed at the gentleman that I had the opportunity to talk with. And I hope he finds this, because like I said, I did show him my website as well. Maybe he'll check it out and he'll realize that I did reference him here. But, it was a great conversation. He asked some wonderful questions. And he was not necessarily in disagreement with me about the salary cap. And I told him, I said, and this is even before I knew he was part of the organization. I said they had a team owner for several years. It was very willing to spend lots of money, signed some players to some big name contracts or some big dollar contracts. But then he has sold the team, and I think they're a little bit more tight fisted with their wallet, if you will, at this point in time. But if you've never watched footy before, I would say that the Geelong Collingwood game of this past round 8, will be a great one to start with. Okay, I think it'll be a tremendous game for you to watch. And but it was a lot of fun. And after this gentleman hopped on the flight, I watched the second half of the game, and I'm doing, yeah, and I can't yell and hoot and holler because I don't want to get kicked out of the airport. But I mean, I'm sure there were some people sitting there wondering, why is this guy giving fist pumps during, while I'm sitting there on my laptop? It's not like, look at that character on this TV show or whatever. Oh, right. Yes, sir. My stock portfolio went up, whatever it may be. But it was just a unique place to watch a game. And it was just a tremendous effort on both sides. Okay. The Pies, you easily could have won that game. I'm not a Cat supporter who was sitting here going, ha ha ha, we beat you. I mean, I'm glad we won, but that game could have gone either direction. Okay. That game could have gone either direction. I feel bad for Jack Crisp, in the last kick. And his teammates certainly went to console him afterwards. But it was a great weekend. And before I do wrap up, I do want to mention I read a book while I was on the trip also. Had it sent to me by my friend Jack, who lives in Tasmania, who signed me up for my initial membership with the Tasmanian Devils Football Club as well. So Jack is a host of a terrific podcast called Tales from Three Corners. And again, it's not a sports podcast. It's a podcast that you could sit down and listen to with your kids. It's great storytelling. Each episode's about 6 minutes long. I've talked about this one before. It's phenomenal. But she also does another podcast called The Word Count, and it's where she is joined by a couple of other writers. Fiona Taylor's, I think it's Fiona's last name, and then Joe Dixon. Well, she also sent me Joe's, I think, second book, maybe her third book. I think she's working on book 4 right now, but sent me a book called The House of Now and Then. And it was a mystery. It was a it dealt with two different timelines, and the timelines kind of played leapfrog with one another, if you will, throughout the story. And it was just and it's, as it says, mystery, crime, fiction, mystery thriller. It is set in Tasmania and a little bit in Brisbane and Sydney as well, and England. Um, but just a phenomenal book. I truly enjoyed it, and it was one that gave me it sent me in different directions. And I actually, because I communicate with these ladies on their podcast, and I did send Joe a message on her Instagram message page. I said, I've reached this point in the book, and here's what I think is going to happen. And I sent her a follow-up note. Well, I got that completely wrong, but it was just a great story. So if you're looking for a good, fun little mystery, especially if you want a little bit of, culture about Tasmania, I do highly recommend a book called The House of Now and Then. I really did enjoy that one. You can get it on your Kindle for $5.99 as well. But I do have the paperback edition that Jack sent me, so really, really enjoyed that. But my work schedule gets busy here. Now I'm now going to be doubling up on my jobs with the summer job beginning this coming weekend until the school year is out at the end of May. And then I jump into working full time at my summer job. So it's going to be very hectic. Looking forward to getting going on that. Um, Great round of footy. I've not even really previewed games for this round. Let me actually go ahead and jump into round 9 here, which we're going to be heading into next. Let's see here. I'm just looking at the. Okay, I know we've got Gold Coast heading up to Darwin for the next couple of weeks. They've got. I'll tell you what. If you're in Darwin, get to these games. You got the Bulldogs and the Hawks coming to Darwin over the next 2 weeks. So if that stadium, TO Stadium, is not sold out, I'm going to be so disappointed. And I have a feeling it's going to be standing room only. Okay. And Bailey Smith, do me a favor, just a little preemptive thing here. When you go out next week, if you happen to beat GWS, and I'm going to tip you to beat GWS, even though the Giants tend to play very well down in Geelong, do me a favor. Let's not comment about exciting games being played at Cardinia Park rather than at TIO Stadium. Okay, let's just go ahead and put that comment. Put it in our sock like our mouth guard when we're getting ready to take a set shot, and leave it there. Okay, just a bit of advice. Yeah, you got the Adelaide matchup with Port and with the Crows. Bombers in Sydney. It's going to be an interesting matchup right there. Both of them are starting to have some success. You got St. Kilda playing Carlton. Carlton, they got thumped this week. St. Kilda's playing pretty decent. Can St. Kilda throw some dirt on the Blues? I don't know. It's going to be a great matchup. But folks, hey, make sure you head over to my website at ayankonthefooty.com and get signed up on the mailing list over there. When new episodes come out, they'll be in your inbox within about a half an hour of when they get released. Head over to my YouTube channel as well. Just look for Yank on the Footy. Hope you'll subscribe over there. I'm a little over 250 subscribers. I'd love to get there to around 400 by the middle of June if I possibly can. So tell your friends about it. Share the podcast. Leave a review if you would as well. That'd be a huge help. You can do that right on my website as well. If you enjoy the podcast, take a moment, leave a review over there as well. If you got an idea for a great guest, please reach out. It's been a very hectic, 6 months, quite frankly. I've got my wife has her last chemo treatment coming up in about 2 weeks, so we're thrilled about that being over. Well, folks, there's my take on round 8. And I'll talk to you soon. And as always, may your dribble kick never hit the post. Cheers. This is Craig Wessels. Bye-bye.